What if everything you were taught about gardening was actually making your life much harder than it needs to be? We are told we have to till the earth, pull every weed by hand, and spend our summers chained to a garden hose. But while most gardeners are fighting a war against nature, Ruth Stout was busy taking a nap in her backyard. Known as the no-work gardener, Ruth discovered a 12-inch secret that allowed her to grow food for over 30 years without backbreaking labor. She achieved this without a tiller, without a hoe, and without ever pulling a single weed from the ground by hand. Today, we are breaking down the Stout System. You can turn your backyard into a self-maintaining food forest with ease. You can grow your own food using nothing but organic material and a little bit of patience to build your soil quality. This is how you garden like a rebel. Ignore the expensive advice sold to you by the big garden centers. To understand why Ruth's method works, we first have to look at what happens beneath our feet during the spring. Every time you turn the earth with a tiller or a shovel, you are destroying a complex subterranean highway of living organisms. Millions of tiny fungal strands called Mycorrhizae are ripped apart. This instantly cuts off the nutrient supply lines for your future vegetable crops. When soil is exposed to the air and sun, it loses moisture and carbon. It turns into a dusty desert instead of a living sponge. Weeds are actually nature's first responders. They are designed to cover that open wound as quickly as possible to protect the soil from eroding. By layering heavy mulch instead of digging, you are protecting the soil microbiome. You allow the earth to feed your plants naturally. Ruth Stout did not start as a rebel. She spent years following the traditional gardening advice found in every popular magazine. She lived in Connecticut and spent her spring mornings tilling the soil. Her back ached and her hands were covered in blisters. One spring morning in 1944, the man who usually tilled her garden failed to show up for his scheduled appointment. Ruth was tired of waiting. She looked at a pile of rotting hay that had been sitting near her garden fence all winter. She decided to simply throw her seeds on the ground and cover them with a thick layer of that spoiled, wet hay. She expected the experiment to fail. But what she witnessed over the next few months changed the course of her life. Her plants grew taller and greener than ever before. They received almost no attention from her throughout the entire growing season. This was the birth of the no-work method, a system born out of a single moment of frustration and a heavy pile of hay. She spent the next 30 years documenting every success and failure. She proved that the old ways were completely unnecessary for home gardeners. Let us look at the technical specifications of the mulch itself. The material you choose dictates your ultimate success. Ruth famously used hay as her primary building block, but not just any hay will do for a highly productive garden. Spoiled hay is often the best choice. It is full of moisture and has already begun the process of breaking down into compost. You might be worried about weed seeds in the hay, but a 12-inch layer is far too thick for those seeds to germinate and reach sunlight. If you use straw instead of hay, you must realize that straw lacks the diverse nutrient profile found in field-grown hay. Hay contains the flowers, seeds, and stems of many different grasses. This translates into a more balanced fertilizer as it decomposes. As that organic matter rots from the bottom up, it releases a steady stream of nitrogen and minerals into the root zone. You are essentially building a slow-release fertilizer factory. It never needs to be refilled by a store-bought plastic bag of chemicals. If you cannot find hay, shredded leaves, or even grass clippings can work. Just maintain that critical depth of at least 8 to 12 inches. Wood chips are another excellent option. Though they take longer to break down and may require a nitrogen supplement in the first year, the key is to keep the ground covered 365 days a year. The sun should never directly touch the bare soil. One of the most common questions is about nitrogen tie. How does a 12-inch layer of carbon-rich material avoid starving your plants? Traditional gardening wisdom suggests that adding uncomposted carbon to your soil will rob your plants of the nitrogen they need to grow. However, because the Stout method does not involve tilling the mulch into the dirt, the nitrogen exchange happens only at the surface interface. The soil bacteria work at the boundary between the earth and the hay. They slowly pull nutrients down without depleting the root zone below. This creates a high nitrogen environment right where the plants need it most. The top layer remains a dry protective shield against evaporation. Measurement is critical here. A layer that is too thin will allow the sun to bake the soil and trigger aggressive weed growth. If you can see even a sliver of dark earth through your mulch, you have not added enough material to be successful. Ruth recommended keeping at least 8 inches of hay on the ground. This applies even during the height of the summer heat and harvest season. As the bottom layers turn into rich black compost, you must continuously add fresh material to the top to maintain the proper depth. This constant replenishment cycle ensures that your soil is never hungry. Your plants are never stressed by a lack of available nutrients. Let us discuss the concept of soil structure. The Stout method creates the perfect environment for healthy root expansion. When you till the soil, you create a temporary looseness, but it quickly collapses into a hard, compacted layer known as a plow pan. Roots struggle to penetrate this hard layer. This limits their access to deep water and minerals stored far below the surface. In a no-work garden, earthworms do the tilling for you. They create thousands of tiny tunnels that allow air and water to move freely through the soil. These worm tunnels are lined with nutrient-rich castings. These castings act like a supercharged fuel for your growing vegetable and fruit plants. Over several years, your soil will become so soft that you can push your entire arm into the earth without any resistance whatsoever. This level of aeration is impossible to achieve with mechanical tools. Tillers and plows always leave some level of compaction in their wake. By letting the biology do the work, you are creating a permanent state of fertility. It improves every single year you continue to garden this way. The worms, fungi, and bacteria work around the clock. They build soil structure while you sleep, completely free of charge. Planting in a foot of mulch sounds impossible, but you realize you are not actually planting in the mulch itself. You simply use your hands to part the hay like a curtain. Push it aside until you reach the cool, dark surface of the soil beneath. For larger transplants like tomatoes or peppers, clear a small circle. Tuck the plant into the earth before pulling the mulch back around the stem. For small seeds, create a narrow trench in the hay. Add a thin layer of compost or fine soil to provide a proper seed bed for germination. The mulch acts like a protective fortress. It keeps the soil temperature stable while your seeds germinate in the moisture, rich darkness below. This simple physical barrier prevents the sun from baking your seeds. You will spend significantly less time watering with your hose. As the plants grow taller, you can pull the mulch closer to the stems. This provides support and keeps the roots cool during hot weather. This method mimics the floor of a natural forest. Seeds fall into leaf litter and grow without any human intervention or cultivation. Let us look specifically at how Ruth Stout grew potatoes. This is perhaps the most famous application of her unique system. Instead of digging deep trenches and hilling up soil, she simply placed her seed potatoes directly on top of the ground. She then covered them with a foot of hay and walked away. She did not return until it was time to harvest the crop in autumn. When the vines died back, she simply pushed the hay aside. She found clean, large potatoes sitting right on the soil surface. There was no digging required, no muddy tubers to scrub clean. There was no damage from garden forks or shovels during the harvest process. This same principle applies to almost every vegetable in your garden. From heavy feeders like squash to delicate greens like spinach and lettuce. For garlic and onions, you can simply poke a hole through the mulch. Drop the bulb or clove into the soft soil beneath and cover it back up. The mulch will protect the bulbs from the winter freeze. It ensures they have plenty of moisture when they sprout in early spring. For root vegetables like carrots and beets, you may need to add a layer of fine compost. This helps the tiny seeds establish before the roots dive deep. Ruth also grew tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, and cucumbers with incredible success. The consistent moisture and rich soil produced bumper crops year after year. Many people look at a Stout-style garden and see a messy pile of hay. They do not recognize it as a highly productive food forest in action. They worry that the deep mulch will become a breeding ground for slugs. They fear these pests will destroy their tender seedlings. While slugs do love moisture, a healthy mulch system eventually attracts ground beetles and toads. These predators keep the pest population naturally low. You are not just growing vegetables, you are building a balanced ecosystem that manages its own problems without the need for chemical sprays. In a tilled garden, the soil is an unstable environment. It favors fast, moving pests and discourages the slow, moving predators that would eat them. By leaving the soil undisturbed, you allow spiders and predatory insects to build permanent homes. They hunt garden pests daily without any effort from you. If the look bothers you, simply add a clean border of wood or stone. Give your organic revolution a more intentional and designed appearance. Most neighbors will not mind the hay if it is contained within a beautiful frame. This shows the garden is being actively managed. You can also use a thin layer of clean straw or wood chips on the very top. This provides a more uniform color and finished appearance. The beauty of the system is that it is flexible. It can be adapted to fit the aesthetic of any suburban or urban backyard space. Let us address the topic of water conservation. This is becoming increasingly important for gardeners in every part of the world. A traditional garden loses a massive amount of water every single day. This happens through the process of evaporation from the bare soil surface. In a stout garden, the 12-inch layer of mulch acts like a lid on a pot. It keeps the moisture locked in the ground where the roots can access it. You will find that even during a heat wave, the soil beneath your hay remains cool and damp to the touch at all times. This means you can reduce your water usage by up to 70 to 90%. You save money and protect a precious natural resource for those living in arid climates. The Stout method is not just a convenience. It is a necessity for growing food sustainably without constant irrigation. Plants that are consistently hydrated are much more resistant to disease. They are less likely to be attacked by opportunistic insect pests. A stressed plant sends out chemical signals that attract pests, but a well-watered plant in rich soil can defend itself much more effectively by maintaining constant moisture levels. You are giving your garden the best possible chance to thrive. This works regardless of the local weather patterns. During periods of heavy rain, the mulch also acts as a buffer. It prevents soil erosion and stops nutrients from washing away down the slope. The true power of the Stout system is revealed when you compare the harvest results. Look at a tilled garden versus one that has been mulched for several years. Traditional gardeners often struggle with stunted plants. Their soil is depleted of nutrients and lacks the structure to hold onto water and air. In a Stout garden, the soil becomes richer every single year. The hay breaks down into black, nutrient-dense earth that smells like a forest floor. You will find that your plants require less water even during the hottest weeks of July and August. The insulation from the mulch makes all the difference. The mulch acts like a giant sponge. It absorbs every drop of rainfall and releases it slowly to the roots over several weeks or even months. Ruth Stout proved for over 30 years that you can produce enough food to feed a family. You can do this without ever breaking your back in the process. This is true food security. It is built on a foundation of rest and biological efficiency rather than endless hours of heavy physical labor. As you begin your first year, remember that the soil needs time to adjust. It needs to adapt to this new way of existing and breathing. Your first harvest will be good, but your fifth harvest will be legendary as the soil biology reaches its full, vibrant potential. The diversity of microorganisms in your soil will explode. Fungi, bacteria, protozoa, and nematodes all work together to create a living, breathing ecosystem. Trust the hay, trust the biology, and most importantly, trust the wisdom of a woman who chose a nap over a hoe. This is the path to a permanent garden. It feeds your body and your soul without demanding your health in return. Go forth and mulch. Let the earth remind you how easy it was. Always meant to be for those who listen to nature. Think about the hours you will save every single week, time that used to be spent on hands and knees pulling weeds from hard soil. You can spend that time observing your plants, planning your next harvest, or simply enjoying the peace of your outdoor space. Ruth Stout often said that her favorite garden tool was her comfortable lawn chair. She could sit and watch her vegetables grow without lifting a finger. That is the ultimate goal of the gardening rebel. Achieve maximum abundance with the absolute minimum amount of wasted human energy. The 12-inch secret is a gift from the past. It can help us build a more sustainable and productive future for everyone who gardens. It starts with a single bale of hay. It requires the courage to stop doing what everyone else tells you is absolutely necessary. Your garden is waiting to thrive. Step away from the tiller and join the revolution of the no-work gardening method. This is the end of the struggle. This is the beginning of a lifetime of effortless, bountiful harvests for you and your entire family. Nature is ready to do the heavy lifting for you. You just need to be brave enough to step back and let it work its magic. The Stout method is not just about growing food. It is about reclaiming your time, your health, and your connection to the earth. In our modern world, we have been taught that more effort equals better results. But nature shows us a different path entirely. The most productive ecosystems on Earth require zero human intervention. Old growth forests, prairies, and wetlands thrive without a single gardener in sight. Ruth Stout simply asked one revolutionary question: what if we could garden more like nature and less like a factory farm? Her answer was to stop fighting the natural cycles, stop trying to control every aspect of plant growth through force and chemicals. Instead, she learned to work with the soil biology. She created conditions where plants could thrive on their own without constant human babysitting. This shift in perspective is what separates a traditional gardener from a true permaculture practitioner. One fights nature, the other dances with it. When you embrace the no-work method, you are not being lazy. You are being smart about resource management and energy conservation. You are recognizing that your time and physical health are valuable. They should not be sacrificed at the altar of backbreaking traditional farming methods. As you transition to this method, you may face criticism from traditional gardeners. They will tell you that it cannot possibly work. They will insist that tilling is necessary, that weeds must be pulled, that plants need constant attention and chemical fertilizers. But remember that Ruth Stout was told the same things. She ignored the critics and let her abundant harvests speak for themselves. Within a few years, gardeners from around the world were writing to her. They wanted to learn the secrets of her incredibly productive, low-maintenance garden. She wrote books, gave lectures, and spent her later years sharing this knowledge. She wanted everyone to experience the freedom that comes from no-work gardening. Today, her methods are experiencing a renaissance. Gardeners everywhere are rediscovering the power of permanent mulch and undisturbed soil biology. Climate change is making water conservation more critical than ever before. The Stout method offers a practical solution to this growing challenge. Food prices continue to rise and supply chains remain vulnerable to disruption. Growing your own food is no longer just a hobby, but a form of resilience. The 12-inch layer of mulch is more than just a gardening technique. It is a symbol of self-sufficiency and environmental stewardship. So take that first step today. Find a bale of hay, a pile of leaves, or a load of wood chips. Cover your garden bed with that generous layer of organic material. Walk away and let nature begin its quiet, powerful work. Check back in a few weeks. You will see the magic starting to happen beneath that protective blanket of mulch. The soil will be softer, darker, and teeming with life. Earthworms will multiply, and your plants will respond with vigorous, healthy growth. Year after year, the system will improve on its own. You simply add more mulch and harvest the abundance that nature provides so generously. This is the garden that Ruth Stout envisioned. A place of rest, beauty, and endless food without the endless toil. Welcome to the revolution. Welcome to the garden that works for you instead of the other way around. The 12-inch secret is yours now. Use it wisely, share it freely, and watch as your backyard transforms into a paradise. Nature has been waiting for you to trust her. Now is the time to finally let go and let the earth do what it does best. Happy gardening, and may your mulch always be deep and your harvest always be bountiful.